Come with me on an idle ride as we watch The Last of Us together.
Can't be any worse out there. Can it?
I can take care of myself.
How many close calls have we had?
Ellie! Stop! Stop!
Fucking touch me!
It's okay. It's me. It's me. It's me. Look. Sweet Jesus.
Doctor?
What are you doing in here? This is our future. Think of all the lives we'll save.
I struggled for a long time with surviving. And no matter what, you keep finding something to fight for.
Welcome to Idle Ride. I'm your host, Marcy, and this is my chosen brother, Paul.
Hello. How's it going, everyone?
We're back after a long hiatus. I recently just posted the final review episode for The Last of Us. So, wow, I can't believe it's been 8 or 9 months, Paul, since we've gotten together to record this show.
No, it tracks. It just doesn't feel like it.
I know. Well, it was a big year for me, and now it's the new year, so we're starting it off fresh. I'm going to do a quick discussion about where Idle Ride is headed. So I know that there's a lot of new content coming out that both Paul and I are very interested in. Number one, first and foremost, is the new Netflix live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I'm extremely excited for, but also have lowered expectations.
Yeah, thank you, Shyamalan, for making us have low expectations on this.
I know. I mean, you can't get by without talking about the Shyamalan nightmare of The Last Airbender.
I've actually never watched it, so...
Oh, you're so fucking lucky. Every once in a while, I want to go back to revisit how terrible it is, and then I'll, see just a clip from somebody posting about how much they hate it, and I'll be like, yeah, I can't even watch a clip without being enraged. So many stupid things. First and foremost, I mean, we don't have to talk about it for very long, but
I love this. No, tell me all about why you hate this.
Well, I'm in love with all of the character decisions they've made, the actors so far. Azula's a little iffy, but if she pulls off the crazy, I don't really care in terms of she looks a little bit teeny boppery, but I guess Azula's she is a teenager in Avatar: The Last Airbender, but Shyamalan literally changed how they say the main character's name from Aang.
Right,
he
the
changed
Aang
it to
thing.
Ong.
Yes.
I'm you had perfect content. The most perfect story. It's all laid out for you. Everything is done beat by beat perfectly. And the first thing you do is obviously, we're going to put a white kid in the role, and they're not pronouncing it correctly. I know better. I'm going to say that his name is Ong.
I love your facial reaction to that, too. Ong.
Yeah, it's so fucking disgusting how many things he did wrong there. This is the most dynamic martial arts cartoon you'll ever watch that includes amazing, fun, magical elements of fire, water, earth, and air. Oh, I know. Let's slow that down by 10,000% so that the person watching it is so bored they want to die. I mean, anyway.
That's literally 90% of my understanding of the movie is clips from people breaking down how bad it is and showing it feels like 10 minutes of dancing to make the earth move. You'd be faster if you had a shovel.
Yeah, wait until the Industrial Revolution. You'll be dead in 5 seconds from a gunshot.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, I'm extremely excited for Uncle Iroh's character. It's the dad from Kim's Convenience.
Oh, okay.
Plays Uncle Iroh.
I love that choice.
Yes, it's really fun. And then, I'm just hopeful for the coveted when Iroh becomes buff scene. Do you think this old guy is going to get buff for that scene?
I hope so.
It's not in this season even or the next season, but like I'll be waiting for Buff Kim's Convenience actor. I don't know his name. Sorry. Anyway, so we're both excited about that. And I think we'll be reviewing / watching / reacting to that show. And then also, what the hell is with like video games now being made into TV shows? Fallout is coming out on Amazon Prime.
That's wild to me. Like, the trailer dropped. I knew I had to talk to you, Marcy, because nobody else would be as excited. And I knew that you had already seen it, but I had to open the conversation.
Yeah, well, first of all, how was this not on my radar right away, first of all? And I guess mainstream people could enjoy it. Like, it is very video game. If you played Fallout 2 is the very first one that's good. Like, Fallout 1's okay, but Fallout 2 is just like the epitome of games. It has so many cool things in it. And part of what was cool about Fallout 2 is all the movie references that were in Fallout 2. So now I'm wondering, it seems like they're doing Fallout 3, or at least some of the things from Fallout 3 are in the trailer. Obviously, they have dog meat, which is a very important thing. Anyway, Fallout 2 basically took things from movies and TVs and put them in its game. So now it's sort of like going backwards. I don't know. Yeah, I'm super excited to kind of see what they would do with it. It seems like they're going to have the silliness that is part of Fallout, but Fallout's also like super brutal, but it has a really deep lore.
I'm much newer to Fallout than you are. I know that you played the originals. I didn't get in until Fallout 3. I don't think I actually finished Fallout 3 because the plot bored me. But I recently watched a video that was talking about the starship theory of the vaults. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, well, yeah, I do know that in like Fallout 3 you end up going to, in like one of the side quests, like a starship in the sky.
Okay, so...
And yes, there's like in Fallout 2, one of the best guns in Fallout 2's game is like a gun from an alien ship that you find.
Okay, so the theory that I'm referencing is basically each vault had a scientific purpose for making a generational ship to take us away from this planet.
Oh, I didn't know about that theory.
Okay, yeah. And so, like, they laid it out. They showed dozens of different vaults in this video and how each one is, like, a failure condition that could happen, which is why some of the vaults are so horrible.
Interesting.
Yeah, I found that a really cool idea and, like, a framework to guess what kind of vaults might be out there.
I love that part of Fallout, the vault system in general, and how it is kind of an Easter egg every single time you find a new vault. Like, you don't know where they are, and when you find them, you're like super excited to figure out like, what was this vault about? Like, what crazy shit went down in here?
What went wrong? How did everybody die or become horrible monsters that try and kill you?
That was like a really cool thing about Fallout 2. Part of the story is that you're like this villager who's trying to find a gek, which is this thing that creates an oasis. Like, you open it and it's like a box of Eden basically comes out of it. It's a wasteland out there, and it'd be awesome to have this box full of Eden. And so they never redid that, though. They never brought the gek back, which was like the whole journey of Fallout 2 was to find a gek. And your ancestor was like a vault dweller. You're from this like tribal village. Anyway, Fallout 2 is an amazing game. It'll be interesting to see how they make all that crazy shit become like a TV show. And it looks like from the trailer that it's going to be fun from what I can tell. So we're both looking forward to that, I think.
I personally hate all billionaires and think that they should stop being billionaires. But if there's been one nice thing from any billionaires ever, Bezos funding TV shows that I appreciate, such as The Expanse and Rings of Power and Fallout, I guess have to weigh on the plus side.
Yeah, I mean, you can still be like, that's nice that he has money to make good content,
Yeah.
But that doesn't eliminate that he's a piece of shit.
Exactly. Thank you for
Yeah.
fixing my point.
And then, of course, in all the background there, I feel like we might also still be doing some rewatching of the show Silo, which both of us watched. You recommended to me, and I had read the book before watching the show, and you hadn't read the book before.
I
you
wasn't
watched
even
the
aware
show.
that there was a book, so that was a nice revelation.
Both of us have watched Silo, the series, but the first season appears to be from the first book, Wool, and the whole series is the Silo series, which in and of itself, it's kind of silly that they call it Silo, because I don't even think after you watch the final episode of the show know why that is. But I know.
Because you've read the books.
I know, because I read the books. Anyway, it's an amazing television show. Like, Andrew and I both had read the books series. I don't think I finished the series, so maybe the third book will be a surprise to me, but I think we'll probably review that series as well in between if we have time, because it's, again, something that was made from a different type of media into a television show, and I feel like that's kind of our shtick at this point. So yeah, we've got a lot coming up. I think our theme is basically just reviewing post-apocalyptic sci-fi or fantasy shows that are from other media that we've already consumed, because that's what we do. We consume stuff.
Like
and I think we're
locusts.
both big readers and video game players, and that's kind of where now all the shows and movies are getting their content. So,
Which is wild, because I still have a soft spot in my heart for the really bad Super Mario Brothers movie, but that was what I thought all video game adaptations were going to be, is just garbage.
I think back in the time that was made, the video game industry was kind of villainized, so people certainly weren't going to be making a lot of movies, or they were making them more for kids. Like, you remember that movie, was it Wizard, I think? Or The Wizard?
Yeah.
Where the kid had, like, the power glove, and, like, he was going to the video game competition, and that was, like, sort of a Goonies, but for nerdy kids who liked video games, with Fred Savage.
Oh my.
You don't remember this? You never watched that?
I think I've seen that movie. I do remember, like, a Power Fantasy video game glove movie, but Fred Savage, I forgot.
I think it's called Wizard or The Wizard. If I got it wrong, oh well, you can look it up. Just look up Fred Savage. I know he's in it. Well, this was promised to be a bonus episode about a video game that makes us feel like The Last of Us. So, surprising everyone, we chose one that's not even close to the same type of gameplay as The Last of Us. So we decided that we were going to talk about the game Frostpunk. Paul, maybe I'll let you kind of talk a little bit about the origins of the game.
I don't feel like I'm an authoritative source on this, but around the time that climate change started to become a topic that people accepted in the public, which is in the future from now. Sorry, that's a US joke because everyone else in the world is sane. No, but around 2018, Frostpunk came out, and it was sort of an opposite of what we're looking at future. And they specifically went out of their way to not make it something that we could analyze and call stupid scientifically. So, like, they specifically said the temperatures are the same globally. There's no specific known cause, but it could have been volcanic eruptions and other. They basically said every possible thing that could go wrong did go wrong. And so the entire world becomes a snowball, and the scientists of the time basically decided, and this is very Britain and American centric of a story, that they would go north to where the coal deposits are and make little coal cities that just steam up the world, emitting all kinds of CO2, but that doesn't matter because the world is freaking cold and nobody really cares about carbon emissions. They like it there, and it makes sense for them. It's a hard, horrible world with giant blizzards that come at periodic intervals and destroy your exploring teams. You need the explorers to find stuff and bring people to your civilization so that you can actually make a working city. And it's this punishingly brutal story about making this little shining light of refuge against the freezing world. And you're the commander of this city, so you have dictatorial powers, but you can be, one of the lost conditions is everyone just says fuck you and gets rid of you. So you have to balance people's happiness and hope and law and order and make all kinds of little decisions about whether to punish people or help them, and meanwhile managing very, very limited resources.
Yeah, that's a really good overall description of what the game is. It was created by 11-Bit Studios. Earlier, I started playing it because we had both been playing that game, This War Is Mine, which is also another very brutal, desolate game. The studio, at least these two games, tends to be kind of like what would happen if you actually had to make these moral dilemmas or decisions that could hurt other people to survive. And I think that's the crux of, I think, why it makes me feel like the show The Last of Us, because you're presented many times within both of these games, This War Is Mine and Frostpunk, with these moral dilemmas of like, how are you going to manage this thing? Like, everybody is trying to survive, and what are you going to do about it? Are you going to chop people's legs off to make them continue to work, or are you going to just put them in a care home, you know?
Yep. Are you going to have child labor, or are you going to put them in a care home as well?
Yeah, exactly. And Frostpunk, I think, is kind of a classic game that I tend to gravitate towards, which is sort of a city building game. So it's more of a city building game where you're top down, kind of looking at all of your little minions doing their work and being productive. And what I love about these newfangled games nowadays is that, like, you can legit, like, scroll, zoom in on one little asshole, like, digging coal, and click on them, and it'll, like, tell you what the name of that person.
Yep, where they live.
And where they live. Each person is an individual in this game, like, even though you're the god of sorts, or the captain. I've always loved that part of those types of game. Like early SimCity, you could kind of do that. Like, you could click on a house and know, like, how many people are in it. But this definitely makes it feel a little more personal, because at the beginning, as you're trying to get your city going, somebody might get sick, right? And they go into the medic tent, and then they talk to you, like, their little image comes up, and they're like, I'm sorry, I'm missing work, or whatever. They'll and it's just, I think it's interesting that even though it could be that you don't give a shit about, like, any of these people, which you kind of don't, but you could.
You care about their output.
Yes, exactly. And so you gotta make them happy. So, like, when you're playing, what levels do you tend to play at? Because I was, like, sort of looking. You have the option to do survivor mode, which is you can't pause at all.
Oh.
And I am not that strong of a person. Like, I just can't make my decisions in real time that fast to think that I could, like, save my colony. Have you ever played it on survivor mode?
No, I refuse to play it on a mode where you can't pause and make decisions. And I will flat out admit it, in Frostpunk, I save scum like hell. Every single day, new save.
That's funny. I don't do that as much. I definitely really have a hard time, even with this kind of game where you know, like, no matter what decision you're going to make, people are going to start dying and people are going to get discontented. Mm-hmm. It's discontent versus hope. So, like, you'll have the Book of Laws is what it's called, where, like, you click on it and then it gives you options for different things. So it will either help your people become more hopeful or keep them from becoming less hopeful over time, or more discontent if you make a decision that they don't like. And not everybody, just like in real life, is gonna like your decision.
Can I provide an example of this?
Yeah.
So this game goes out of its way to allow you to build brothels. If you build brothels, discontent will rise because a lot of people are unhappy at moral blah blah blah. Also, you will start to get sick people from STIs, and at some point enough outrage happens that they'll ask you if you will close down the brothels, please. And that's all stuff that you could never engage with by never building a brothel, or you can go through it all like I've done at least once. I decided that brothels are almost never worth it for my societies because I tend to go with the religious routes, and so hope is never a problem in most of the games that I run, but also discontent is never a problem because I have fight pits. So it's very pushing specific moralities where you can beat each other bloody and that's fine, but a little sex for money, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's so funny that you always go the religious route, because I was just thinking that I almost always go the order route. I'm like, we gotta beat these mofos into submission. Let's do some propaganda. I gotta get my little, like, watchmen out there.
Oh, yep, the
like...
Night Watch.
I'm always become like the militaristic authoritarian, like, you have to do what I tell you because that is the right thing to do.
And I almost never complete that. I never go for the last steps of authoritarianism because I don't feel like my society wants me to be the chosen one or whatever the religious version of that is.
Paul, sometimes there has to be a chosen one to make the right decisions.
We're saving society here.
So also, I guess we should mention part of the game is resource management, which is like a big deal because the game is basically slowly over time getting colder and colder and colder. Your people are getting colder. So like heat is sort of a resource. You have to pay attention to how cold it is and how cold all of the little buildings your people are living in. And then you have these steam engines or steam-powered heating devices that you're setting up and building to protect your people from getting frostbite and getting sick and keeping them more hopeful. All the resources that you're building up is steel, wood, coal, food, and then there's steam cores. I also like games that have multiple different types of things that are happening in them. So you're building your little city, but then like there's a larger map that your little teams are going out into to go searching, because like you usually start out with just a limited number of people and that's it. If you were to never build the balloon observation thing to look outside of your city, you would never get more people because your characters don't make kids, so you have to go find kids. Well, at least you start with some kids in the main campaign. There's 3 main campaigns that the original game started with, and I guess now there's a couple more, 2 or 3 more that you can get. So then you're searching this other map, and I gotta mention a couple of things, like that map, like everything about it, like the music, the sound effects are all provide this like ambiance of, you and I both know we're from Alaska, and so it is funny, like, when we were watching The Last of Us in that scene that we both talked about how, oh, it feels like we're at home, where everybody else was like, probably like, wow, what a desolate, horrible place. Like, when I hear the whistling wind in my headset, I'm just like, ah, I love this sound, the sound of childhood. Like, anyway, playing it feels hard in that it affects your emotions, but also feels like, for me, nostalgic, which is weird.
That is wild.
Do you feel like you have like a similar feeling when you play that?
I absolutely agree, yes. I was talking to someone from Texas recently, and they were saying that they were having trouble turning on the heater because it was close to the smoke alarm, and so they were just living in 60 degrees, and I had to be quiet about 60 degrees and my opinions on that temperature because I don't think that's that cold. I was just up in Juneau, Alaska this past week, and it was raining the whole time. There was like one day that it snowed and the snow didn't really stick, and it just didn't feel like winter. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas is now going to be an aspirational goal. You're not going to just have it anymore. Even in Juneau, Alaska, you know, it has ski slopes. It used to be a very snowy place.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because I was also in Alaska visiting a family member, and it was cold there. It was almost got under 0, like -1 or 2 in Anchorage. It didn't take me very long before I was like, oh yeah, this is normal.
Yeah.
And I was cold, but like you just ignore it. My legs especially, like I never liked to wear snow pants or any like extra layers. So my upper body and core would be warm, and I'm like, Yeah, I can barely feel my legs, but that's normal. So I'll just like, like just keep going. Like that's life. As long as my core is warm, my head.
That's bird logic. I mean, that's why birds don't have feathers on their legs.
Is that really why?
Well, kind of. Evolution doesn't have logic, but yeah, there's almost no blood flow through their limbs, and they can basically afford to lose all that heat. There's that video of, I think, a kingfisher or some small bird, and its feet were frozen to a metal pole, and a person used their thumbs to warm the feet up enough that it could actually
Aww.
fly away, and it was fine.
That's cute. I always did wonder about that because chickadees are one of my favorite birds. They're an Alaskan bird. And their little bodies are so puffy. And then they have these little toothpick-sized legs underneath their little puffed up bodies. It's the cutest thing ever. But I always wonder, like, how the fuck do those birds live through the winter? I guess they just don't have any circulation in their legs. I know my big badonkadonk has plenty of like insulation before it gets to the real important bits. So
who knew that we'd be talking about chickadees and badonkadonks in a post-apocalyptic ice game? Yeah, so the exploration mechanic is fascinating, especially when dealing with the moral depths that this company wants to put people through. And so you can learn incredibly deep stories, but it's only the edges of stories, because a lot of the times you come to a place, it's abandoned or everyone's dead there. Your characters piece together the story of how Tesla Town, remember that place?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so like there's this whole city that's still got electricity running, and it's got this fenced barrier that you can't get through unless risking life and limb. So like there's all these people starved to death, but they had all the amenities you need for temperature, and it could have been a place that you could use, but it's so dangerous. And like you find there's some missions where
you could fight a bear or not fight a bear. If you fight a bear, a bunch of people die.
Exactly, yeah.
But you get more people.
Right. And like there's kids that were sent away to a cave for safety, and then the adults all died. And so you just find a group of kids they were going to starve to death there if you didn't bring them back home. But like they don't know what happened either. So it's just, there's a lot of piecing together stories of horrible things that have happened to people.
Which feels a little reminiscent, though very different, I would say, to Myst.
Okay.
Did you ever play Myst?
Yeah, I didn't love it as much as my sister did, but I did play it a bit.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan, probably because of the puzzles, and I hate puzzles.
I'm right there with you.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Thank you. And I'm like, okay, like I can only I'd have to quit so many times because I'd be like, fuck this puzzle. Anyway, but it had the same feeling where you're like piecing together what happened to this village that's completely empty, and like I enjoy putting together these stories or the lore. We like the lore and the journey more. Like, yeah, like tell us why this world is the way it is. The storytelling is done really well in this game, even though it's not an RPG.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I think the exploration feature of it allows you to feel the world a little more than just like, I'm in this sim game where I'm just making a community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it connects you to the world in a way that, specifically knowing when the next storm, is coming, that's such an important aspect in your city building. You have to plan all kinds of stuff around when the next big freeze happens, because, okay, I do kind of want to get into this. Some of the physics in the game, I think, are kind of silly. Why would you just radiate the heat outwards? Because the steam core is the center of your city, and it has a radius of heat zones. And the cookhouse, I hate the cookhouse, because why is the house that burns things to make food hot one of the coldest rooms?
Yeah, the food aspect is funny because you get raw food and then you have to make it into rations.
Yeah.
Which I guess I understand. I mean, that's legitimate because we do that in real life. You don't just like eat raw meat, But I think it's like that micromanaging bit that they're making you do, because the people in the cookhouse don't always stay in the cookhouse. They cook the food and then you can put them in other places.
Yep.
but it just becomes this like game of where do you need people the most and how are you going to ration the productivity so that you can make it to like the next time the world heats up a little bit. And yeah, the cookhouse is kind of a funny aspect of it. I just started playing a new campaign in Frostpunk in preparation for this episode, and it's the next one where you're like protecting the seeds.
Okay,
and they're like the seed arcs. So you've got like 4 arcs that are housing seeds, and you have to keep the arcs warm. Otherwise, the seeds will die, and then like the future of humanity is destroyed. I was complaining in my head about the cookhouse. Like, why is this here? And you're right. The physics of the game is strange. Like, everybody who is from Alaska knows that really it's about having internal heaters in the homes and better insulation in the homes. So basically, you should have a contractor named Andrew Johnson is one of the characters in the game that goes and insulates all the homes for you.
Oh, man. Frostpunk would be such an easy game if we had one Andrew.
What? That would be like really funny. Like you're the one special character that you get is the contractor.
Yeah, retrofit every house to be good insulation.
If you wanted to mention anything about the musical aspects of the game, like a lot of that ambiance music feels like and sounds a lot like the ambiance music from Frostpunk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, the music and the visuals, I would call it desolate beauty. I've always sort of felt this way about snow covering stuff, because specifically in Fairbanks, in the spring, when everything's melted away, you see all the litter that people have left out throughout the whole winter. But anytime there's a fresh snowfall, it just looks clean, and, it's hiding the refuse, but it's just got a nice shiny veneer of white on everything. Makes it just pretty, and also, I don't think you should stay out there too long.
It is funny that you say that. Like, a lot of the words that I like, you know how there's words that people like and don't like? Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of people don't like the word moist because it kind of sounds like what it's saying. Mm-hmm. My favorite word has always been crisp. Because I feel like it sounds like what it's saying. Mm-hmm. Like, crisp sounds like the word that what it means.
Yeah, I feel that too. Yep.
In Alaska, one of my favorite feelings was for not to be like bitterly cold, like 40 below, but like when you'd walk outside from your house and you'd get that like crisp feeling of like cool air in your lungs. It almost feels like cleaner somehow, even though it's not. But like, I've always just really liked that feeling of you kind of being warm, but you're breathing in that cool, crisp air.
And it's true that colder things are denser, so cold air has more oxygen in it. It always has felt like a breath of cold air just feels much more than a breath of warm air. And I have nothing to base that on except for the, little bit of science on density.
Interesting. I like that. I certainly feel like when I go somewhere where it's humid that I'm being fucking suffocated. Mm-hmm. Like, I could never... Sorry, everyone who's from the South that listens, and I know there's a couple of you. But every time I go to the South, I'm just like, I was not born for this country. Like, going to the South, it feels like everything in my DNA is rejecting that place. Not the people, like the people are amazing, but just the humid air, the ticks, like there's just so many things that don't work with my DNA.
I love the idea that what other people call sweat, you call my body rejecting this place.
Basically. This is my body rejecting. Like, when I hiked the Appalachian Trail, one of my freak out moments was literally because I couldn't get dry. Like, in cool climates or arid climates, you can hang your towel up and it will dry. So you don't need to wash your towels regularly. I mean, you should, but you don't have to. They'll dry.
You could be excused for forgetting it occasionally.
Yeah. I had been like hiking for weeks and weeks, and my clothes were never dry. I was just always moist.
Waste.
Wet. I couldn't get dry, and like I felt like my pores were just clogged, and I had this freak out moment. I was like, I can't do this anymore, Andrew. And he just like sat there with me, and I cried, and he's like, all right, can we keep going now? And I'm like, yep.
I'm done freaking out for the moment.
But anyway, so it is interesting that anyone else playing this game might feel something completely different than what we feel because of where we were raised, basically.
Yeah, there's just lots of things different about life that you have to experience to get a feel for it.
Obviously, we're going to talk about games that we like, but I feel like Frostpunk is a game that I have gone back to multiple times. Again, I feel like I'm a chronic unfinisher of most games, but I actually did recently finish a game of Frostpunk. So that was interesting. I'll talk about that experience a little bit because it is such a desolate game. You get to a point, well, I got to a point at least in the game where I knew there was no way I could save everyone. And so I just put it at like max fast and just didn't make any other decisions after that.
You just abdicated responsibility.
Yeah, I'm done. And I think maybe like I had tons of people in my city to start, and then there was like 50 people that were left or something by the end. And people were dying left and right, and it felt really guilty and sad, but good to wash my hands of my shitty first city.
Oh, I like what you did there.
How about you?
My most recent playthrough, I did the one where you build the new Steam core, the last autumn, maybe it was. And I haven't looked at playthroughs. I don't tend to look into what other people do for this game because I like to figure it out myself. But I am fairly convinced that there's no way to build the Steam core in time without doing the cheaty thing where you can speed build at least once. And
there's a cheaty thing that makes you speed build?
Well, it's got a punishment. It just doesn't happen until later.
The one where you can like super fast everybody's productivity for 24 hours?
It's not exactly that. It's like complete this component of the Steam engine immediately, but because they did it so hastily, it'll have defects when it's built. And so I am 100% certain you cannot build it. So when you do it, it'll have problems such as a diminished range, or it overheats faster, and if it gets to, the explode, you just kill your people off.
Your face.
Anyhow, I did end up managing to succeed on this playthrough, but I did do the speed option such that every single winter storm that came, I would get 50 people who lose a limb, basically. So I kind of did what you did, and by the time it was like day 70 or 80 or something, I knew that it was sustainable. My city doesn't need any more input from me. I'd done all the researches, and it was just guaranteed limb loss every single storm.
But it's funny. Yeah. I mean, because there's certain things like you just can't do anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so the city just has to live the way that you've set it up.
No more Steam cores, sorry. No more automated buildings.
Oh, funny. Yeah, so I think we like this game for sure, for many reasons other than that it has some feel of The Last of Us. Definitely a very different game from The Last of Us, but I think worth giving it a trial playthrough at the very least if you like city building games.
Do you want to tell me and the rest of the world how much playtime you have on the game? Because I can tell you right now.
Oh, how much I have?
Uh-huh.
Is it like 60 hours?
No, not close.
Like less than that?
More than 3 times that.
Whoa, on Frostpunk?
Yeah, I have 219.7 hours of playtime according to the Steam library.
Oh, that's yours. You're
My
asking me your playtime.
Yeah, so what's your playtime?
I have so many games. It's obscene. Okay, I got mine pretty close. because I was guessing mine. Sorry, Paul. I didn't realize what you were asking me. But yeah, 46.2 hours. So
Wow. And you're way better than me at this game.
that's not true. We don't know who's better.
Well, probably not, but you don't save scum and you don't pause as much as me, I bet.
No, I'm a chronic pauser. There's no way I could not pause that game. I like pause every like 2 seconds. Pause.
Is everybody being maximally efficient right now?
Yeah, exactly. Why is there one guy not working? Get back to work, you lazy bum.
Oh, and do you do this too, where your main concern is how many days of a given resource you have? And like that's all you're focusing on is like, oh my god, I only have 3 days of coal.
Yeah, well, the coal's the big thing, right?
It is the big one.
Why is there so much less days of coal available? Oh yeah, because I added 3 steam cores. Like, so, what is the next game that we think we want to? Because there's that one that I was talking about, Eastward. I think you were the one that originally made me aware of this game, where it's basically The Last of Us, but in like a pixel type game, top-down pixel game.
I do remember you talking about this.
A gruff older guy and a young girl who's special, who are in like a post-apocalyptic world, and they're walking around and he uses like a frying pan to attack things, and it's super adorable looking.
It's not a promise. We might choose something else, but Eastward seems to be a contender.
Thank you so much for listening, and like I said, probably the first thing that we'll start watching along with you guys is going to be Avatar: The Last Airbender from Netflix.
Can't wait.
And we'll see you guys then, and for some more bonus eps. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.